Yes. Yes. I want to look at all of the people who want to get rich quick. I'm gonna give them, a psalm because everybody wants a psalms. Everybody need a psalms, and everybody, always talk about psalms and things like that. So all of the get rich quick man them and woman them, listen to this. This is a psalms where you find that David, he was king, but of Israel at the time, when this psalm was written. All right, because these psalms were written later on, in David's life. It's not David who write all the psalms, but he wrote some. But I am putting this one on David. Yeah, I'm ascribing this one to David. All right. He said on this one, he was talking about, because he was, the king of Israel. So he said, truly God is good to Israel, even to such as, of a clean heart. So what he's saying that, God is good, as to when you have a clean heart. So you must always strive to have a clean heart. So all of the people them who want to get rich, you hear what happened. The first thing he said, God will be good to you if you find something, boy, you have, a good heart condition, which meaning that, you're thinking and you find something, boy, your words follow you're thinking, which is good. All right. So he said, but, as for me, he said that, look, listen to me. I'm a mortal man, and he said, as for me, my feet was almost gone, meaning that, him trip up, almost trip up, or to trip up, and you understand. I say, and my steps well near slipped. You understand. So this is what David is saying. He said, I was envious at the foolish when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. So he's saying that a wicked man is a foolish man, because he said, I was envious of the foolish when I see the prosperity of the wicked. Listen to David. And this is Psalms 23, and in the continuum. So I'm continuing now to verse 4. See, it said, for there are no bonds in their debt. You understand? Meaning that, there's no strings, in their debt, but their strength, is firm. All right. He said, they are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men. He said, they're not in trouble. It seems like you find it, well, everything will go on well for them forever. And they're not plagued, meaning that they don't have, cinema hospital, they don't have diseased body like the regular man. All right. So this is, he's identifying these foolish men, as what he said, wicked men. You understand? So he said, therefore pride, compass at them, like a clothes. Yeah, this encompass me, meaning that it's around me. All right. And I say, as a chain. You say, as a chain, like a chain that you use chain things up. It said that violence covered them as a garment. Say, what's up? What he's saying that you can identify these men by the violence always seems to happen around them, because they are evil men, they are wicked. All right. All right. So say, their eyes stand out with fatness. They have more than their heart could wish. He say, their eyes stand out with fatness, meaning that they always buying the biggest house, the stuff that you find that the biggest cars, the most expensive jewelry and all of these things. So that's what David is saying. So you can identify a wicked man. All right. what you call a foolish man. All right. And he said they set their mouth against the heaven. Them talk that there's no God. And their tongue, walking through the earth. They talk that them control the earth. Just like how you see Satan said to God when God asked him in Job, 1 verse 6, where are you coming from, Satan? He said, well, look, I'm coming from to and from and up and down the earth, meaning that we control things. So this is what these people, this is what these people they are saying. You understand? So he said, therefore, his people return, and the water, of their cup full, and wrung out on them. He said that, and they say, how does God know? And is their knowledge in the most high? So the question in God and say, boy, you're going now. Look here, we are going with the foolishness, we are going with everything wickedly, and God not trouble with. So look, there's no God. So there's no accountability. We can do what we want to do. Who is you? Because we have the money, can do what we want to do. So this is what this is what David is saying. You understand, Master? He said, behold, are the ungodly who prosper. In this world, they increase in riches. He said, verily, I have cleansed my heart in vain and washed my hand, in innocence. So he said, look here, when I see all of them things, on my foot, he said, look here, when I see what happened now and how they behave, that they're questioning God, and that they can do anything. He said, boy, you're going now, him come like Pilate, him washing hand from that. Want to get involved, in the fast money business. So so all want riches, and you find certain boy, don't understand that you find certain boy. The Psalms where everybody are talking about protection. Psalms, boy, read Psalms 9. Yes, good to read Psalm 91, but you have to read, some of the Psalms that, teach you how to walk in a power, how to walk in a knowledge. You understand? And I say, I will speak just, behold, I should offend against the generation of thy children. So he must say, boy, he must speak out, because guess what going on, one nobody say, you find certain boy, him see what go on, and then he didn't, address. Like come here address the younger generation, that they might, resist, this kind of temptation. It's a temptation, because the man said he was tempted by what he saw these people accomplish. All right. And he said, when I thought, to know this, it was too painful for me until I went into the sanctuary, not necessarily a church, but maybe in a house, and in a prayer room, or in prayer closet, or in city, and then understood it, it in their end. You understand me? He said, surely thou didst set them in a separate place and casted them down into destruction. So he said that, eventually what will happen, he just, let them do what they do until then, they cast themselves down in a destruction. That's what God do now. Because if you should read Romans, 1 verse 21, he said, when they knew God, they never worship God as God. He said, neither were they thankful. So he said, he'll leave them. So when time God leave you, just like if you have a brother or sister, and they keep on, disrespecting or doing things, like maybe, be on drugs or whatever, and doing, having bad behavior. And you don't want them, running anymore. You don't lick them with a stick, or you don't beat them, or you don't, injure them. What you do, you leave them. But you are wrath, meaning that you find something, boy, you're upset with them, but you just leave them. And this is what God's saying, that when in verse 21 of Romans 1, he said, When they knew me, they never worshiped me as God, neither were they thankful. So he leave them. So, what I'd say also, don't, you know, when you see people and do things, don't try to hurt them because, you upset. Leave them alone and walk away from them, move away from them. And then what happened, you will see the result. That's why, the Lord always say, vengeance is mine. So all the people them will have it in intention as to all, some young people, they can't tolerate. They have it in their intention now that, as soon as the person upset them, yeah, they want to use the knife or the guns and all of them things, and they want instant justice. So what God is saying that let's not happen. Leave people. Sometimes a man upset you. Just leave him to time. Because time, no man no greater than time. None of it, none of us. You understand? Because, I was saying yesterday that look at myself, I was, I remember I was a little boy, in a tear up pants, tear up body pants. And now, my gray out, you understand what I say? And, in a few years, that maybe the next, 15, 20 years, me all out, when time you see me walk and I tremble, all out, you understand what I say? So, what I should say, and a time that, so you can't kill time, you understand? So, me people, listen to what happened, just like and share this thing, and make sure, say, you follow and you discuss this thing and comment on it, because what happened is very important, Let me know what's going on, because, and, let, TikTok or, Facebook or, what is the next one again? Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. No, what I'm going, because I'm on, the fourth thing, So, I have, videos all over the place. So, you can look and see what happened. Because I try to impart some knowledge. You understand? So you can read the whole, 73 chapter, of Psalms. It start, in a verse 1 to show you, David mindset. And, he saw, people getting rich. And, he said, well, he wanted to be rich also. So, him try to make a move, but him draw back. You understand? Him draw back when time him go in him sanctuary and investigate. So, look here. Just, just keep your composure. And, make God, run your life or you will ruin your life. All right? So, take care of yourself.